Welcome into the Important Nonsense YouTube Waiver Show. It's me, Jason Draven. We're going to start off with quarterbacks like we do every week, and it's Daniel Jones is my first quarterback. 10.7% owned. His upcoming matchups are the Falcons and the Saints. In week 1, he was QB 13. And in week 2, this past week, was QB 4 against a good defense. This is a team that will always be trailing, so he will have a decent option to have to throw or run. He showed that he could really run this past week, almost putting up 100 yards in rushing, and was the number 1 rusher on his team. This team has a good run defense, which will allow them to really have to put up points because of the fact that other teams are going to be throwing on them. With that in mind, we'll move on to the next team, which is Kirk Cousins. 24.5% owned. His upcoming matchups are the Seahawks and the Browns. In week 1, he was QB 12, and in week 2, QB 5, where he went toe-to-toe against Kyler Murray. He has a bunch of great options in Adam Thielen, who's a huge touchdown monster, Justin Jefferson, who really showed what he could do last year, and out of nowhere, KJ Osborne, really just adding value to this team in the receiving game. And of course, they have Dalvin Cook, who's a great rusher, as well as a solid pass catcher. We'll move into running backs. Looking at them, we have Mark Ingram. I know, not the fanciest guy you want here. His upcoming matchups are the Panthers and the Bills. Week 1, he was RB16 and is currently running back 33 in fantasy. First week, he had 14.5 fantasy points, and in week 2, he had 5 fantasy points. Not the greatest numbers, but he is going to get a majority of the work and will be somebody that you probably want on your team, especially when it comes times for bye weeks. I think he's going to be a huge asset. The next guy is a rookie in Kenneth Gainwell. 12.3% rostered. His upcoming matchups are the Cowboys and Chiefs. Both have horrible run defenses. In week 1, he was a running back 20 in fantasy. He put up 12.3 fantasy points. He is the clear number 2 running back behind Miles Sanders. He was used in the passing game, and in that first week, he had the lone touchdown for running backs. We'll move into wide receivers here, and the first is another rookie, okay? It's Ronald Moore. He's 19.2% rostered. His upcoming matchups are really awesome in the Jaguars and the Rams. He is currently wide receiver 17. He put up 10.8 fantasy points in his first game against the Titans, where the team blew them out and was able to start switching around and looking at other options. He had a lot of his work in the first half. In the second game, he went up against the Vikings and put up 24.4 fantasy points. His first game, he saw 5 targets, caught 4 of them for 68 yards. His second game, he saw 8 targets, caught 7 of them for 114 yards and a touchdown. This is a player that you're going to want on your team moving forward. The next guy, somebody that's a vet, it's Nelson Agholor. He was 38.3% rostered. His upcoming matchups are the Saints and the Buccaneers. Week 1, he was wide receiver 22 against the Dolphins. Wide receiver 44 on the season. 23.3 fantasy points. He looked solid in his first showing and was second in targets. However, in the second game, he just wasn't needed. In a dominant win over the Jets, the defense for the Patriots really allowed him to have success. Next, we'll move into tight ends, and I'm starting off with Pharaoh Brown. He is 0.2% rostered. His upcoming matchups are the Panthers and the Bills. In week 1, he was tight end 10 against the Jaguars. He put up 10.7 fantasy points. He's tied for the second most targets on the team. Now, this past week, he really had a down week. He only had 1 target, but he was dealing with an injury. So that's something to keep in mind as you look at other pass catching options for the Houston Texans, especially this week when they're starting a rookie. Definitely somebody you want to check out. Next guy is Pat Freiermuth, okay? 4.5% rostered. His upcoming matchups are the Bengals and the Packers. He has slowly been overtaking Ebron as the Steelers tight end. He currently has 100% catch rate. He's caught every target thrown his way. Week 1, 3.4 fantasy points. Week 2, 7.6 fantasy points. And I don't know if you guys have been watching these players, but Pat Freiermuth is a short area target, and that's what Ben's going to need. You see that Claypool's value is down so much, and it's because that O-line is not giving him any time. He has to get the ball out quick, and Freiermuth is another great option for that team. We'll move into defenses for this week, and starting off the Cardinals, 30.3% rostered. Upcoming matchups are the Jaguars and the Rams. They are currently the number 8 defense in fantasy. The first week, they put up 17 fantasy points against the Titans, dominated in all aspects of the game, held Derrick Henry to under 80 yards. I think that's really a volume thing because it's very difficult to hold Henry that low, but they struggled against Vikings because of all of the options that they have. However, this week, they have Trevor Lawrence, and with that in mind, I'm excited to see them just go off against them again because they're going to put up points, and Trevor Lawrence is probably going to make a mistake or two. Cardinals are going to definitely have a chance here. We'll move to the last one, and it's the Panthers. They're 13.1% rostered. Their upcoming matchups are the Texans and the Cowboys. Oh, wait, and they're currently the number 1 defense in fantasy. Put up 11 fantasy points against the Jets and 14 fantasy points against the Saints. Held Alvin Kamara to 30 total yards and intercepted Jameis Winston twice and only allowed 111 passing yards this past week and a touchdown from Winston. All this is really great options. I hope you remember to keep up the nonsense, and let's watch some football.